John Ruddock, member of the New South Wales Legislative Council as a member of the Libertarian Party. John, welcome to Spectator TV.
Nice to see you again, Alexandra. Thanks for having me.
Of course, when I heard the news that WikiLeaks editor and publisher Julian Assange had suddenly and unexpectedly walked free from Belmarsh prison after 1,901 days, the first thing I did was call you. Now, the High Court in the UK bailed Assange, who quickly boarded a flight to the Northern Islands, where he will enter a plea of guilty to a felony as part of a deal with the US Justice Department. Now, this means that his potential 175-year sentence has been commuted to time already served. Go on, John. What do you think of the release of Julian Assange?
Well, look, there's thousands of good people across the planet who have been very invested in the Julian Assange's freedom. So for those people, and I've been a small part of that, a lot of people have done a lot more, but I have spoken out for Julian Assange when I can. And look, it's a great day of elation. So congratulations to all those people who've put in so much effort. Now, it's just on a personal level, people who've got to know his family, etc. So now, but politically, of course, it's a good decision. Now, look, I'm not a fan of Prime Minister Albanese, but he does deserve credit on this occasion. Peter Dutton had shown no interest in the release of Julian Assange, and Albo being an old school lefty, when Assange, was a hero of the left 10 to 15 years ago, Albanese would have been got it into his DNA that he was pro-Assange. Now, to his credit, he has, got the top job, and he did behind the scenes. He didn't sort of seek publicity and fanfare. He did say to President Biden on more than one occasion, say, look, we're doing a lot for you at the moment, America. Can you please give us back Julian Assange? And I think that Biden has consented to that. That's good. So it's a real tragedy that he's been locked up. If journalist Julian Assange had been a free man over the last 10 years, I doubt that we would have had a less chance of getting into all these dreadful wars, and he would have been extremely helpful during the COVID period. So because he publishes Whistleblowers, and there were a lot of whistleblowers during COVID. So now look, he's got a plea deal. What we don't know is what has he agreed to do in exchange for this. The US has been quite light on him. They've got him on. He's pleaded guilty a few hours ago to one charge of espionage, and as you say, time served. So he's a free man. He's on his way to Australia now, which is all terrific. But it's a he should never have been jailed. That's the key thing. The judge that gave him the release, the American judge today, said in his sentencing when Assange pleaded guilty, the judge said, well, your actions didn't result in the death of anybody. Okay, now his critics say, well, it did result in the death. Well, the judge today said it didn't. And Assange and WikiLeaks have also claimed that the documents that he did publicise did not result in any deaths. So, I think that's more likely to be the case.
Well, John, I have a short statement here posted on behalf of Julian Assange, and it reads, WikiLeaks published groundbreaking stories of government corruption and human rights abuses, holding the powerful accountable for their actions. As Editor-in-Chief, Julian paid severely for these principles and for the people's right to know. As he returns to Australia, we thank all who stood by us, fought for us, and remained utterly committed in the fight for his freedom. Julian's freedom is our freedom, end quote. Now, John, Julian Assange is a hero for press freedom, but some consider him to be a criminal who endangered the lives of military men and women. On this, our readers at The Spectator are divided. What do you think? Is there a cause for this division to be both sides, or do you think that people might be misjudging Assange?
Well, look, the right-wing conservatives, which I'm usually one of them, but on this occasion I'm not. Assange told the world some of the horrors that were happening with these US wars of choice, in Iraq in particular, which was the worst war. Iraq turned into a bloodbath after, George Bush's decision to bring democracy to Iraq. Everybody knew it had nothing to do with 9/11. Assange exposed to the world bad things that were happening. Bad things happen in every war, okay? And it shocks the public when they see it. So this is why they had it in for Assange big time, because the most powerful institution in the world is the military-industrial complex. And of course they hate Assange's guts because he's not good for war. So the key thing is what we don't yet know, Alexandra, is what he has agreed to. Now, he may have agreed to not use a computer for 10 years, not get on the internet for 10 years. Now, it's going to be hard to enforce, but, Australia's got a pretty robust extradition treaty with the US, so we can't sort of go around, completely ignoring it. But it may be that he has agreed that he'll have his hands tied. Now, I have been calling on Julian Assange for a year to accept a plea deal, to get him the hell out of jail. He has done the right thing. He wasn't guilty, but he's pleaded guilty. Okay, and that because we were worried about his health. Now, because when he came out of the Ecuadorian embassy, he looked absolutely terrible. The big beard, he looked like he was a homeless person. But the footage that we've seen of him in the last day or two, pretty good. He looks like he's in good shape, mentally and physically. Even looks like he's a little bit overfed. Well, that's not a bad thing to come out of prison looking like that. So I'll tell you another very interesting thing, Alexandra. The pro-Julian Assange movement is split quite acrimoniously. Now, I won't go into the details because I don't know who's right and who's wrong. But it's basically a family split. So it will be interesting to see who Julian, now that he has his freedom, and I think he arrives in Canberra very shortly, it'll be interesting to see which side of the family that he initially hangs out with.
Well, Spectator writer Vincent Hooper wrote this morning on Assange, and I quote, "In 2010, when WikiLeaks published a vast trove of classified US military documents and diplomatic cables, these revelations exposed numerous instances of misconduct and potential war crimes, sparking global outrage and elevating Assange to a controversial figurehead for transparency and free speech," end quote. Now, organisations like the Committee to Protect Journalists and Reporters Without Borders have seen this plea bargain as necessary to protect the role of press in a democratic society. Now, herein lies the question, John. What secrets are governments entitled to keep? And can the government be trusted to police its own behaviour? Because that's essentially what the government's saying is, we don't need whistleblowers because you have to just trust us. Or do we need individuals like Julian Assange to risk breaking the law in order to tell us things that the public need to hear? And this is a tough one for Conservatives because I hear them say things like, Julian's a traitor, he betrayed our secrets, but maybe we needed to know those secrets.
Well, look, firstly, when he published all those diplomatic cables, the Sydney Morning Herald and the New York Times and, all the respected, left-leaning media outlets around the world, they published them endlessly, okay? And there were some very humorous things that came out. It was particularly interesting to see how very senior Labor figures in Canberra during the Rudd-Gillard period were so keen to be on the right side of America. So that was entertaining. Now, sorry, I have forgotten your question, Alexander.
The question is, are governments entitled to keep their military secrets, or are there some things that we need to know, even if it involves breaking the law to find out?
Okay, well, look, what we need is a much, much smaller government, so there's far, far fewer government secrets to be withheld from the public. We're meant to have freedom of information in the West since the 1960s. Now, when we have a big, powerful government that goes and starts wars and other things, well, yeah, they want to keep things very, very secret. Well, if we have a much smaller government, they've just got less power and the people flourish a lot more than they do at the moment, then yes, there'll be a lot less secrets. So, but look, as long as we're going to have the government running the military, then there's going to be some justified secret, okay? But extremely important to have whistleblowers that are protected and that feel confident to come forward. And look, Assange did release a lot of cables, did expose war crimes, but I think he was always fastidious in ensuring that individuals would not be named. So that was a good thing. So look, we want to minimise the amount of secrets that governments have. And the biggest secrets governments have is about foreign policy and about war and about intelligence agencies. Okay, so all these three-letter agencies, what the Americans call them, these people are becoming a government to themselves, a secret government. So yes, it's anything Julian Assange can do to dismantle that shadow government is a good thing.
I think it depends on what kind of secret you're spilling too. It'd be different if he was revealing the location of a secret base that was essential to our national security versus potential crimes that have been committed that did not need to happen. These are different ideas and different things, even though they fall under the same law. Now, look, I'm going to quote again from Vincent Hooper's article because I think he made a good point about Assange, and I quote, "Assange's case has highlighted the risks of unchecked government power and the essential role of a free press in holding authorities accountable. However, it also underscores the responsibilities that come with disseminating information, particularly the need to consider the potential harm to individuals and national security. As Assange walks free, the world is left to grapple with the implications of his actions and the legal and ethical challenges they present." End quote. Now, Assange is an Australian and he triggered one of the largest debates of press freedom in recent human history. What do you make of our government's ongoing role in this? Because, I know you've praised Albanese for what he did, but this has been going on for a long time, John. And, our prime ministers haven't been particularly interested in upholding press freedom or even returning an Australian citizen.
Well, I see Adam Bandt from the Greens today, celebrating the release of Assange. Okay, good. But, my point is you can't be pro-Assange and pro the misinformation, disinformation bill and the e-safety commissioner at the same time. You either believe in press freedom or you don't. What very sadly has happened in the last 20 years is that the corporate media, and I like to call them the corporate media because, motivated by money, they have stopped being skeptical of authority. The role of the press in a democracy is to be skeptical of what the government's telling us. Okay, now during COVID, the stupid corporate press were cheering the government on, saying we want more masks, more lockdown. And they were basically, not being skeptical. It was left to people like yourself, Alexandra. Citizen journalists, and there were lots of good whistleblowers during COVID. So, InfoWars is about to be shut down in the United States. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Alex Jones, okay, but I certainly want him to have his say. I think he sometimes says some interesting things, but they're going to shut him down. Gateway Pundit is another big website in America. They just had to file for bankruptcy. There's this, I think after COVID, they saw that most people are okay with being treated like farm animals. They just thought, well, we could go further than we want. And they just, they deplatformed Nigel Farage from his banking a few months ago. So it's just endlessly trying to tighten the noose on commentators, public officials that are not in line with the big globalist agenda.
Well, in the spirit of free press, and also I know you're a libertarian, so I thought getting a bit of a dialogue between us and our readers online, I actually asked Spectator readers what they thought on Twitter about the Assange case. And as you can see here, I got far more than I bargained for, with over 500 replies of people wanting to have their say. Now, I'm just going to read you a selection of 4 comments so you can see the range of opinions. Tim said, and I quote, "The British High Court should be ashamed of themselves for dragging their feet with the appeals process, cruel and vindictive." Daniel says, "This is one of those rare moments in the history books where the exiled citizen returns home to become one of the nation's most powerful people." Spectator Michael de Percy, who you may know, has said, "I can't help but think he's a national security risk. It's one thing to be a whistleblower, quite another to put our military people in danger. I'm glad he isn't getting the death penalty though." And Doubleshot editor Terry Barnes said, and I quote, "Many others, your scribe included, see Assange as a narcissistic ratbag who was prepared to endanger other people's lives with his document dumps and disgracefully exploited the likes of the malleable US soldier Bradley Manning to do his dirty work. Assange is coming home to Australia, but do we really want him?" Now, John, any comments on this array of opinions coming out of our readers?
Look, firstly, people saying that he is betraying people in the armed forces. Well, I think it's the complete opposite. The work of Julian Assange, if it had been unimpeded, we would have less wars, and so fewer of our soldiers would be dying. So he is the friend of the armed forces, maybe not the intelligence agencies. Now, the other thing is the second comment was very interesting about how he's this returning triumphant hero. And no, I hope Julian Assange decides to get into politics. And the truth is, he has repeatedly said that his 2 favourite politicians in the United States are Ron Paul and Rand Paul, the two biggest names of libertarianism in the United States. So, the lefties, Albanese may end up ruining the day where he got Julian Assange released, because if he's unimpeded, if the government doesn't sort of interfere with him, I think that he's going to have very, very good things to say, and I think it'll be reasonably libertarian.
Well, thank you, John, for your opinion, and we shall wait and see what Assange does. I'm sure he has got plans for his future, but thank you for joining us here today on Spectator TV.